A German shepherd with a scarred face and missing ear limped through Oakwood Park at dawn, his breath visible in the autumn chill. 8-year-old Lily Bennett had been playing with neighborhood children in that same park 3 days earlier, vanishing without explanation as dusk settled over Burlington. The police search had been scaled back yesterday, her smiling school photo relegated to another missing person case in the department's files. This morning, the dog stopped beneath an ancient oak in the park's forgotten corner, barking urgently at a jogger passing nearby, leading her to where little Lily lay chained to the massive trunk. Barely alive, her blonde hair matted with blood, and her small body curled against the morning frost. What happened next would shatter the peaceful facade of their community forever. Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments along with the city you're watching from now. Let's continue with the story. Burlington, Vermont had always prided itself on being a postcard-perfect New England town, especially in autumn when the maples lining Main Street turned brilliant shades of crimson and gold. The historic downtown, with its carefully preserved colonial architecture, attracted tourists year-round, while the friendly neighborhoods with white picket fences and well-maintained lawns gave newcomers the sense that nothing bad could happen here. But like any idyllic facade, Burlington harbored shadows beneath its charming exterior. Oakwood Park sat at the edge of the Hillcrest neighborhood, 20 acres of rolling lawns, playground equipment, and a densely wooded area that backed up to a ravine. During daylight hours, the park bustled with young families, dog walkers and joggers. But as darkness fell, the inadequate lighting and isolated corners transformed it into something else entirely, a fact the city council had repeatedly tabled, discussing in favor of more pressing budget concerns. Emily Parker had moved to Burlington 3 months ago, accepting a position with the Department of Children and Families after burning out from 7 years as an emergency room nurse in Boston. At 34, with shoulder-length blonde hair often pulled back in a practical ponytail, Emily maintained the efficient movements and watchful eyes of someone accustomed to crisis. Her morning jogs through Oakwood Park had become her sanctuary. The 1 hour each day when she could process the harrowing cases that now filled her workdays instead of emergency trauma. The stray German shepherd had caught her attention 2 weeks earlier. Unlike the pampered pets that accompanied most joggers, this dog moved like a soldier, alert, purposeful, and wary. The prominent scar across his left eye and partially missing right ear spoke of past cruelty. Yet there was intelligence in his amber eyes that stopped Emily from calling animal control. They had developed an unspoken routine, the dog watching her from a distance as she completed her circuit around the park. The Bennett family lived in a renovated Victorian on Maple Avenue, just 3 blocks from the park. Ryan Bennett had made his fortune in real estate development, while his wife Amanda maintained their social calendar with mechanical precision. Lily, with her wide blue eyes and sunshine blonde hair, completed their picture-perfect family. Or so it had seemed until her disappearance sent ripples of unease through a community that had convinced itself such things happened elsewhere, to other people's children. The day Lily Bennett disappeared had begun like any other Tuesday in October. The morning air carried the scent of fallen leaves and wood smoke as children waited at bus stops, lunch boxes in hand and breath visible in small clouds. Ms. Winters, Lily's 3rd-grade teacher, had noticed the child's unusual quietness that morning, how she hunched over her desk during art period rather than chatting with classmates as she typically did. "Lily, would you like to share your drawing with the class?" Ms. Winters had asked, concerned by the dark colors and frantic pencil strokes covering the little girl's paper. Lily had quickly folded the paper and shoved it into her desk. "It's not finished," she'd whispered, eyes downcast. Later, when the children were at music class, Ms. Winters had opened Lily's desk and found not one drawing but dozens each featuring a small stick figure surrounded by darkness. Chains, or shadowy adult figures with angry red faces. Disturbed, she'd called Amanda Bennett immediately. Lily's always had an active imagination, Amanda had dismissed with a practiced laugh. We watched a Halloween movie over the weekend, so I'm sure that's all it is. Despite Ms. Winters' insistence, Amanda had refused to come in for a conference, citing charity committee obligations that simply couldn't be rescheduled. That afternoon, Lily had gotten off the school bus at a regular stop, walking the short distance to Oakwood Park, where a group of neighborhood children played under the supervision of various mothers taking turns on babysitting duty. Meredith Simmons, whose son played regularly with Lily, recalled seeing the girl sitting alone on a swing around 4 o'clock, scuffing her shoes in the mulch beneath. She seemed fine, maybe a little quiet, Meredith later told police. But then Ryan, her stepfather, called my cell saying Amanda was running late at the salon and asked if I'd keep an eye on Lily until 6. I agreed, of course. But at 5:30, when Meredith gathered the children for a head count before dispersing, Lily was nowhere to be found. The initial search was casual checking bathrooms, the jungle gym, the ice cream vendor at the park entrance. As darkness fell, casual concern transformed into mounting panic. By 7 o'clock, park rangers with flashlights combed the wooded areas while police took statements from ashen-faced parents clutching their own children tighter. Amanda arrived in a frenzy of designer perfume and breathless apologies about salon appointments running long. Ryan arrived minutes later, his voice cutting through the night as he organized search parties and demanded action from responding officers. Their concern appeared genuine to everyone present, a terrified mother wringing manicured hands, a father barking orders to mask his fear. By midnight, search dogs had traced Lily's scent to the park's north entrance before losing the trail, suggesting she had left or been taken in a vehicle. The community mobilized with astonishing speed within hours. Lily's school photo appeared on telephone poles, local news broadcasts, and a hastily established social media page titled "Find Lily Bennett." Volunteers gathered at the community center, assigned grid sections to search, while police conducted interviews with registered sex offenders living within a 50-mile radius. Emily Parker had seen the news alert on her phone while finishing paperwork at her small apartment 3 blocks from the park. Though not officially assigned to the case, something about the girl's smile in the circulated photo caught at her heart. The next morning, she had joined volunteer searchers before her shift, combing through playground equipment and calling Lily's name alongside strangers united in purpose. It was during this search that Emily first noticed the German Shepherd watching the proceedings with unusual intensity. While police dogs sniffed articles of Lily's clothing and tracked in methodical patterns, this scarred stray sat atop a small hill, observing everything with unsettling focus. When Emily approached, the dog retreated to the tree line but didn't flee completely. "That dog knows something," Emily had commented to a police officer, who'd dismissed her with a tired shake of his head. "We've got trained canine units, ma'am. A stray mutt isn't going to solve this case." By day 3, media interest had begun to wane. The initial volunteer force of hundreds dwindled to dozens, then merely the most committed few. Police issued statements about pursuing all leads while privately admitting to reporters that without new evidence, Lily's case would likely join the devastating statistics of missing children never found. That evening, Emily had watched Ryan and Amanda Bennett on the local news, standing on their porch with perfect posture and appropriate expressions of controlled grief. Something about their performance, because that's how it registered to Emily's trained eye, felt rehearsed. Amanda dabbed at dry eyes with a tissue while Ryan spoke firmly about bringing our little girl home. It was the slight squeeze of his hand on Amanda's shoulder that caught Emily's attention, not comforting, but warning. Emily Parker's legs pumped automatically along her usual jogging route through Oakwood Park, though her mind was far from her typical morning meditation. The fourth day of Lily Bennett's disappearance had dawned with a crystalline frost that crunched beneath her running shoes. The police had officially downgraded the search the previous evening, moving Lily's case from active emergency to the more nebulous category of missing person. Emily had watched the grim-faced police chief announce this at a press conference, noting how the camera caught Amanda Bennett's knees buckling theatrically as Ryan supported her with an arm that looked more controlling than comforting. The bark startled her from her thoughts, sharp, insistent, and familiar. The German shepherd stood 30 yards ahead on the path, his scarred face turned toward her with unmistakable purpose. As Emily slowed, the dog barked again, then limped several feet away before looking back at her expectantly. "What is it, boy?" Emily called, her nurse's instinct responding to the urgency in the animal's demeanor. The dog barked a third time, then turned and trotted into the wooded area that formed the park's northern boundary. Emily hesitated only briefly before following. She wasn't foolish. She took out her phone, activated its GPS tracking, and texted her location to her supervisor with a quick message, following possible lead on Bennett girl, tracking my phone if not back in 20. The German shepherd kept a steady pace, looking back frequently to ensure she followed. They moved deeper into the woods than Emily had ever ventured, past the well-maintained trails into an area where the underbrush grew thick and uninviting. Just as Emily was reconsidering the wisdom of following a stray dog into isolated terrain, they emerged into a small clearing dominated by a massive oak tree. The morning sun filtered through nearly bare branches, illuminating a scene that would haunt Emily's nightmares for years to come. Lily Bennett lay curled at the base of the tree, her small body shackled to the trunk by a heavy chain secured with a padlock around her ankle. Her school uniform was torn and soiled, blonde hair matted with dirt and blood, face so pale it seemed translucent in the early light. For one terrible moment, Emily thought she was looking at a corpse. Then the child's chest rose with a shallow breath. Emily's emergency training took over. She rushed to the girl, kneeling beside her while pulling out her phone to dial 911. The operator's voice seemed distant as Emily reported her location and findings, her free hand checking Lily's pulse steady but present while her eyes catalogued visible injuries, contusions on exposed arms, dried blood at the hairline, blue-tinged lips from exposure. Lily, can you hear me? I'm Emily. I'm here to help you." Emily shrugged out of her running jacket and wrapped it around the child's frigid body. The girl's eyelids fluttered but didn't open. The German shepherd approached cautiously, sniffing Lily's hand before gently lying down beside her, pressing his warm body against hers. The gesture was so deliberate, so protective, that Emily momentarily forgot the emergency at hand. "You knew," she whispered to the dog. "You knew she was here all along." Within minutes, the clearing filled with first responders, paramedics, stabilizing Lily before cutting through the chain with heavy bolt cutters. Police securing the scene as a crime site. A detective questioning Emily with increasing skepticism as she described being led to the location by a stray dog. When she turned to point out the German shepherd, the animal had vanished. "Convenient," muttered Detective Michael Collins. a weathered man in his early 50s whose lined face suggested he'd seen enough of humanity's darkness to last several lifetimes. "So, a mysterious dog just happened to lead you to a missing child that dozens of trained officers couldn't find." "I know how it sounds," Emily replied. "Watching paramedics load Lily into an ambulance." "But that's exactly what happened. The dog's been in the park for weeks." "He's got a scar across his left eye and part of his right ear is missing." Collins made a non-committal note in his pad. "And you've never seen the Bennett girl before?" "Never had contact with the family." The implication in his tone was clear. He was assessing her as a potential suspect. Emily met his gaze directly. "I've never met Lily or her family. I'm a social worker with DCF. Check my credentials. Check my background. I was just in the right place because that dog led me here. We'll need you to come to the station for a formal statement." Collins glanced toward the oak tree where technicians were photographing the chain and lock. "This wasn't a random kidnapping, Ms. Parker. Someone deliberately brought this child here and left her to die." The pediatric emergency room at Burlington Medical Center buzzed with controlled chaos as doctors assessed Lily's condition. Emily sat in the waiting area, having given her statement to police and called in to her supervisor to explain her absence. Though not officially involved in the case, her social worker credentials had granted her basic information: severe dehydration, mild hypothermia, contusions and lacerations consistent with both restraint and physical assault. The child had yet to regain full consciousness or speak. The arrival of Ryan and Amanda Bennett changed the atmosphere instantly. Ryan's commanding presence and booming demands for information drew all eyes, while Amanda clutched a designer handbag like a shield, her carefully made-up face betraying no genuine emotion, despite the tears tracking through her foundation. "Where is my daughter? Who found her? I demand answers immediately." Ryan's voice carried through the waiting area as a harried nurse attempted to calm him. Emily watched from her corner seat, noting how medical staff exchanged glances as the Bennetts were escorted to a private consultation room. She had seen enough abused children in the ER to recognize the subtle body language of the attending physician, the professional distance, the careful positioning between the parents and the information about their child's condition. Something wasn't right. Her phone buzzed with a text from her supervisor. "Bennett case officially assigned to Grayson. Stay clear." Thomas Grayson was the department's most experienced but least confrontational investigator, known for giving affluent families considerable benefit of doubt. Emily texted back a simple "understood" while making a mental note to request case file access anyway. As the day progressed, Emily found herself unable to leave the hospital. She moved to the cafeteria, nursing cups of mediocre coffee while following updates from hospital staff she'd befriended during her orientation. The information came in troubling fragments. Lily had older bruises underneath the fresh ones. X-rays showed evidence of previously healed fractures. The pediatrician had requested a full child abuse workup. Standard procedure, but being met with resistance from someone in administration. When Emily finally left the hospital at dusk, a familiar shape emerged from the shadows of the parking lot. The German Shepherd sat between two cars, amber eyes fixed on the hospital entrance, body tense with vigilance. "You're still watching over her, aren't you?" Emily said softly, approaching with caution. To her surprise, the dog allowed her to come within a few feet before standing and limping toward the hospital's main entrance. He stopped, looked at Emily, then back at the doors. The message couldn't have been clearer. If he'd spoken, the child still needed protection. Over the next 3 days, Emily Parker found herself increasingly entangled in Lily Bennett's case despite explicit instructions to maintain professional distance. She had formally requested temporary appointment as Lily's advocate through the Department of Children and Families, citing her background in pediatric emergency care and the unusual circumstances of the discovery. Her supervisor had reluctantly approved the request after Lily's attending physician expressed concerns about the parent's behavior during hospital visits. "The mother barely looks at the child," Dr. Roberts had noted in his report, while the father seems more concerned with hospital security protocols and staff access restrictions than his daughter's condition. Emily's first official visit to Lily's hospital room revealed a silent, watchful child whose blue eyes tracked every movement with the wariness of a much older person. The girl's small body seemed to disappear into the hospital bed, her blonde hair freshly washed and bandages covering the worst of her visible injuries. A child psychologist, Dr. Sarah Mitchell, sat beside the bed with a sketch pad and colored pencils. "She hasn't spoken since arriving," Dr. Mitchell explained quietly to Emily. "Not a word, not a sound, but she's communicating through these." She handed Emily several drawings, stick figures, and various scenes that made Emily's stomach clench. A small figure in a box-like structure, a larger figure with angry red slashes for a mouth, a house with what appeared to be a child in the basement. "Classic trauma indicators," Dr. Mitchell continued. "I've recommended she not be returned to the home environment until we can determine exactly what happened and who was responsible." Emily nodded, watching as Lily picked up a blue pencil and began carefully shading the sky in a new drawing. "Has she indicated anything about how she ended up chained to that tree?" Before the psychologist could answer, the door swung open. Ryan Bennett entered with the confidence of a man accustomed to commanding any room he occupied. His tailored suit and carefully styled silver-streaked hair projected success and authority. But Emily's trained eye noted the tightness around his mouth, the controlled calculation in his gaze as it swept over the room's occupants. "Ms. Parker, isn't it the social worker who conveniently found my daughter?" His tone made the word "conveniently" sound like an accusation. Emily maintained professional composure. "Yes, Mr. Bennett. I've been temporarily assigned as Lily's advocate during the investigation." Ryan's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Our family has already arranged for private psychological care once Lily comes home. Your services won't be necessary." He turned to Dr. Mitchell. "The same applies to you, Doctor. We appreciate your hospital's care, but we'll be transferring Lily to our own specialists as soon as she's medically cleared." Dr. Mitchell began gathering her materials. "Mr. Bennett, I strongly recommend continuing Lily's current treatment plan. She's just beginning to—" "Thank you for your input," Ryan interrupted smoothly. "Now, I'd like some time alone with my daughter." Something flickered across Lily's face. Not fear, precisely, but a shuddering, as if a light inside her was being dimmed. She set down her pencil and folded her hands in her lap, eyes downcast. The transformation was subtle but unmistakable. After reluctantly leaving the room, Emily cornered Dr. Mitchell in the hallway. "He can't just dismiss the hospital's psychological care. Can he not with an active investigation underway?" The psychologist sighed. "Unfortunately, he knows exactly how far he can push. Without concrete evidence of parental wrongdoing, his rights remain intact. Detective Collins needs to find whoever chained that child to the tree, and quickly." That evening, Emily returned to her apartment to find the door slightly ajar. heart pounding. She called police before cautiously entering to find her living room ransacked, drawers emptied, furniture upended, and spray painted across her wall in red, "Mind your own business." Detective Collins surveyed the damage with a grim expression. "You've managed to upset someone, Ms. Parker. Any ideas who—" Emily gestured helplessly. "I've only been in Burlington 3 months. The only contentious case I'm connected to is Lily Bennett's—" Collins's weathered face showed the first hint of doubt Emily had seen crack his professional skepticism. "Ryan Bennett is a prominent businessman with considerable influence in this community. Making accusations without solid evidence would be—" He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Inadvisable." "I haven't made any accusations," Emily responded, crossing her arms. "But someone obviously feels threatened by my involvement." After the police left, Emily spent hours cleaning, the mindless physical labor helping to settle her jangled nerves. Around midnight, a soft whine outside her ground-floor window caught her attention. The German Shepherd sat on her small patch of lawn, alert and watchful in the moonlight. After a moment's hesitation, Emily opened her door. "Come on, then. It's cold out there." To her surprise, the dog limped forward, pausing at the threshold to sniff cautiously before entering. Up close, his injuries looked even worse. The scar tissue around his eye puckered and poorly healed, his ear clearly damaged by something sharp, old wounds visible through his patchy fur. Despite this, his amber eyes held remarkable intelligence and dignity. "You need a name," Emily said, setting down a bowl of water. "I can't keep calling you Dog if we're going to be friends." The German Shepherd drank, then settled beside her couch with a heavy sigh. "How about Shadow? You seem to appear when you're needed most." The next morning, Emily made 2 significant decisions. She would keep Shadow at least temporarily, and she would dig deeper into Ryan Bennett's background regardless of Collins's warning. The former required a trip to the pet store for supplies. The latter took her to the county courthouse records department. While Shadow waited in her car with the windows partially down, Emily spent hours poring over public records. Ryan Bennett had been married once before, to a woman named Catherine Wells, who had filed for divorce 8 years ago. The records included a sealed family court file that Emily couldn't access, but a notation referenced Child Protective Services. Further searching revealed Catherine had moved across the country immediately after the divorce was finalized. Emily's phone rang as she was leaving the courthouse. An unfamiliar male voice spoke when she answered. "I understand you've been asking questions about Ryan Bennett. Meet me at Lakeside Coffee in 20 minutes if you want information." The caller hung up before she could respond. Emily stood indecisively on the courthouse steps, weighing the risk against potential information. Professional curiosity won out. She returned to her car, where Shadow greeted her with a gentle headbutt against her hand. "Looks like we're making a detour," she told the dog, who settled back into the passenger seat with surprising comfort. Lakeside Coffee sat on the waterfront, popular with the courthouse crowd. Emily selected an outdoor table with a clear view of both the entrance and the street. Shadow lay at her feet, seemingly unremarkable to passers-by, but alert to every movement. A man in his 60s approached her table, his police uniform worn with the comfortable familiarity of a career officer. "Ms. Parker Frank Simmons, retired Burlington PD. May I join you?" Emily gestured to the empty chair. "You called me about Ryan Bennett." Simmons nodded, ordering coffee before continuing in a lowered voice. "I handled a domestic disturbance at Bennett's previous residence about 9 years ago. His ex-wife, Catherine, had injuries inconsistent with her explanation of falling downstairs. She refused to press charges. But something about Bennett's behavior raised every red flag in my 30 years of experience. Emily leaned forward. What happened? Nothing officially. Catherine withdrew the complaint. The department backed off. Bennett had friends in high places, even then. 3 months later, she filed for divorce and vanished to California. Simmons stirred his coffee needlessly. There was a child involved, Bennett's stepdaughter from Catherine's first marriage. 10 years old at the time. The custody agreement gave him no visitation rights, which is unusual unless there are serious concerns. Shadow's ears suddenly pricked up. He rose to his feet, a low growl emanating from his throat. Emily turned to see Detective Collins approaching their table, his expression thunderous. Officer Simmons, interesting company you're keeping, Ms. Parker. Collins remained standing, deliberately intimidating. I thought I made myself clear about pursuing unauthorized avenues in an active investigation. Simmons stood, nodding to Emily. Nothing unauthorized about 2 citizens having coffee. Detective, Ms. Parker, consider what I said. He departed with a pointed look at Collins that spoke of old departmental conflicts. Collins took the vacated seat. You're interfering with my investigation. I'm doing my job, Emily countered. Advocating for a child who can't advocate for herself. By investigating her stepfather based on circumstantial connections, by following concerning patterns that you seem determined to ignore. Emily met his gaze directly. Ryan Bennett has previous allegations of domestic violence. His current wife shows classic signs of coercion and control. And Lily, she stopped, emotion threatening to override professionalism. Collins' attention shifted to Shadow, who maintained unwavering eye contact with the detective. This the famous dog that led you to the girl? Emily nodded. His name is Shadow. Something in Collins's demeanor shifted subtly. He reached a hand toward Shadow, who sniffed it cautiously before allowing a brief touch. Interesting marking on his collar, Collins noted, pointing to a faded insignia barely visible beneath the matted fur. Emily hadn't noticed it before. Gently parting Shadow's fur revealed the remnants of a training badge, mostly worn away but with K9TR still legible. Collins raised an eyebrow. Training washout, maybe, or retired service dog. He stood abruptly. Have your new pet checked for a microchip. Might tell you something interesting. He started to leave, then turned back. And Ms. Parker, if you find anything concrete about Bennett, bring it to me first. Not the press. Not your department. Me. The veterinarian confirmed Collins's hunch the following day. Shadow's microchip identified him as Maximus, a German shepherd who had begun police K9 training 3 years earlier, but was removed from the program before certification. The listed handler was unreachable at the provided contact information. Unusual for a training dropout to have these kinds of injuries, the vet noted, examining Shadow's scars. These weren't sustained in the line of duty. Emily's phone chimed with a message from Burlington Medical Center. Lily had experienced a breakthrough. When she arrived at the hospital, Dr. Mitchell was waiting with barely contained excitement. She drew this, the psychologist said, handing Emily a detailed drawing of a German shepherd with a scarred face. And when I asked about the dog, she whispered, Shadow. It's the first word she's spoken since being found. Emily felt a surge of vindication and hope. Can I see her? In Lily's room, the change was immediately apparent. though still silent when her mother visited earlier. According to the nurses, Lily's eyes lit up at Emily's appearance. She reached for the sketch pad beside her bed and carefully wrote in childish block letters, "Where is Shadow?" "He's at my apartment," Emily answered, sitting beside the bed. "He's safe. Would you like him to visit you?" Lily nodded vigorously. "Lily, can you tell me about what happened in the park?" Emily kept her voice gentle, non-threatening. The child's face closed immediately, fear replacing animation. She shook her head frantically and pulled her blanket higher. "It's okay," Emily soothed. "You don't have to tell me now, but Shadow helped save you. He led me to you." Lily considered this, then wrote slowly, "He stayed with me when the bad thing happened." Emily felt a chill. "What bad thing?" "Lily." Instead of writing, Lily turned to a fresh page in her sketch pad and began drawing with fevered intensity a nighttime scene in the park, a large figure dragging a smaller one, chains, a tree. As the image took shape, Emily struggled to maintain professional composure. The drawing showed unmistakable details. The assailant wore a distinctive watch identical to the one Ryan Bennett had worn during hospital visits, and the small figure clearly Lily clutched a crumpled piece of paper. When finished, Lily pushed the drawing toward Emily with trembling hands, then wrote a final message that made Emily's blood run cold. "Daddy said no one would find me. Shadow did." Emily carefully took the drawing. "May I show this to people who can help you?" "Lily." The girl's nod was barely perceptible, her eyes wide with terror at her own bravery. "You're very brave," Emily told her softly. "I promise I won't let anyone hurt you again." As Emily left the hospital, her mind raced with implications and next steps. She was so distracted she nearly missed the black SUV idling near her car, engine running but lights off. Shadow, waiting in her vehicle, stood alert with hackles raised as a figure emerged from the SUV. Ryan Bennett stepped into the dim parking lot light, his face a mask of controlled anger. "Ms. Parker, I understand my daughter spoke to you today. Curious that she remains silent with her own family but communicates with a stranger." Emily moved toward her car, keeping her voice steady. "Children often find it easier to speak with neutral parties after trauma. Mr. Bennett?" "And what exactly did my daughter communicate?" He stepped closer, using his height to intimidate. "That's confidential information pertinent to the investigation," Emily replied, reaching for her car door. "I suggest you direct your questions to Detective Collins." Ryan's hand shot out, gripping her arm with bruising force. "Listen carefully. You're overstepping boundaries that will destroy your career and possibly your life. Walk away from this case." Shadow's bark from inside the car was ferocious, his teeth bared behind the window glass. Ryan released Emily's arm and stepped back, his composure momentarily fractured. "Your dog seems protective," he remarked, voice deceptively casual. "Shame about strays, though so many accidents can happen. Traffic, poison left by irresponsible neighbors. You really should be careful." The threat hung in the air between them as he returned to his SUV and drove away. Emily's hands shook as she unlocked her car. Shadow immediately nuzzled her arm where Ryan had grabbed her, whining softly. "We're okay," she whispered, though her racing heart suggested otherwise. "But we need to move quickly now." She made 2 calls from the parking lot, first to Detective Collins requesting an urgent meeting, then to Dr. Mitchell to ensure Lily would have security present overnight. Whatever came next, Emily knew the battle lines had been drawn and Ryan Bennett had just made his first critical mistake. The Burlington County Courthouse loomed against the morning sky, its 19th century granite facade imposing despite the golden autumn light. Emily Parker climbed the worn steps with Shadow at her heel, the German shepherd now sporting a freshly cleaned coat and proper service dog vest. The transformation from scraggly stray to dignified companion had required 3 baths, gentle treatment of his old wounds, and official paperwork expedited by a veterinarian friend who recognized the therapeutic value Shadow provided to both Emily and, potentially, to Lily Bennett. Detective Collins met them at the courthouse entrance, his typically impassive face showing signs of strain. Judge Wilson agreed to see us in chambers before the emergency custody hearing. Bennett's attorney is already filing motions to block Lily's drawings as evidence. Can he do that? Emily asked, adjusting her blazer, the most formal outfit she owned. Bennett hired Maxwell Thornton, most expensive family court attorney in 3 states. Collins held the door. Thornton's arguing that Dr. Mitchell used suggestive therapeutic techniques to implant false memories. Inside the judge's chambers, Eleanor Wilson sat behind a desk covered with case files, her silver hair pulled into a severe bun and wire-rimmed glasses perched on her nose. At 73, Judge Wilson had presided over Burlington's family court for nearly 3 decades, earning a reputation for no-nonsense rulings that prioritized children's welfare over parental rights when necessary. Detective Collins, Ms. Parker, she acknowledged, eyeing Shadow with raised eyebrows. I assume this animal's presence has relevance beyond emotional support. Yes, Your Honor, Emily replied. This is the dog that led me to Lily Bennett. He's also the only witness the child consistently responds to. Judge Wilson shuffled papers. I've reviewed the preliminary evidence. Mr. Thornton is correct that children's drawings alone rarely constitute admissible evidence, particularly without corroborating testimony, since Ms. Bennett remains essentially nonverbal. We face significant challenges. Your Honor, Collins interjected. The physical evidence at the scene shows the chain and lock used to restrain Lily Bennett were purchased at Oakdale Hardware 3 days before her disappearance. The store's security footage shows Amanda Bennett making the purchase, accompanied by an unidentified man who remained in the vehicle. The judge pursed her lips. Circumstantial. Detective. Mrs. Bennett claims the chain was for a home project and was stolen from their garage. Emily stepped forward. Your Honor, I have documentation of prior allegations against Ryan Bennett from his previous marriage. She presented the records she'd gathered. His ex-wife, Catherine Wells, filed a temporary restraining order before their divorce, citing physical abuse of both herself and her daughter from a previous relationship. The restraining order was dismissed, Judge Wilson noted, scanning the documents. Because Catherine and her daughter disappeared before the hearing, Emily countered. They relocated to California under assumed names. I've made contact with Ms. Wells, and she's willing to testify via video conference about the pattern of abuse. Judge Wilson removed her glasses, pinching the bridge of her nose. That could provide context for a pattern of behavior, but without direct evidence linking Mr. Bennett to his stepdaughter's current injuries, Mr. Thornton will successfully argue past allegations are prejudicial. Shadow, who had been sitting quietly beside Emily, suddenly stood and moved to the judge's desk, placing something on the polished surface, a folded piece of paper that had been tucked into his service vest pocket. Collins looked as surprised as Emily felt. "Judge, that's a note from Lily Bennett. She must have slipped it into the dog's vest during their hospital visit yesterday." Judge Wilson carefully unfolded the paper. Her expression remained neutral, but her knuckles whitened as she read. Without comment, she reached for her phone. "Clara, please contact District Attorney Phillips. Tell him I need him in my chambers immediately." She hung up and fixed Collins with a stern gaze. "Detective, is your forensics team still processing evidence from the scene at Oakwood Park?" "Yes, Your Honor. The final reports aren't complete." "Expedite them, particularly any DNA evidence from the chain, surrounding soil, and the child's clothing." She held up the note. "This changes the parameters of our hearing significantly." 30 minutes later, with the district attorney present, Judge Wilson called the emergency custody hearing to order in her courtroom. The Bennett family had arrived in full force, Ryan, in an impeccable suit, projecting confident indignation. Amanda in understated designer clothes that suggested appropriate maternal concern without appearing flashy, and a dozen supporters occupying the first 2 rows. Maxwell Thornton arranged legal documents at the defense table with practiced efficiency. Emily sat at the prosecution table with Collins, Shadow lying at her feet. The district attorney, James Phillips, had spent the intervening time reviewing their evidence and Lily's hospital records, his youthful face belying his reputation as one of Vermont's most determined prosecutors. The courtroom fell silent as Judge Wilson entered and took her seat. "This emergency hearing will determine temporary custody arrangements for Lily Bennett while the criminal investigation proceeds. Before we begin, I must address a development." She nodded to the bailiff, who opened a side door. "Dr." Sarah Mitchell entered, guiding Lily Bennett carefully by the hand. The child wore a simple blue dress, her blonde hair pulled back with a ribbon, making the fading bruises on her face more prominent. Her eyes searched the room until they found Shadow, and her posture relaxed fractionally. "Objection, Your Honor." Thornton was on his feet instantly. The child's presence was not disclosed to defense counsel. "This is clearly an attempt to create emotional bias." "Overruled, Mr. Thornton. Miss Bennett is the subject of these proceedings and has the right to be present for decisions affecting her welfare." Judge Wilson gestured to a small table positioned near her bench. "Dr. Mitchell will remain with her as her appointed advocate." As Lily took her seat, Shadow whined softly, looking to Emily for permission. With a subtle nod from Emily, the dog padded across to Lily's side, where the child immediately wrapped her arms around his neck. The hearing proceeded with opening statements from both sides. Phillips outlined the evidence suggesting prolonged abuse, culminating in the unconscionable abandonment of a child in life-threatening circumstances. Thornton countered with an alternative narrative, an opportunistic kidnapper who had taken Lily from the park, with her parents as secondary victims deserving sympathy rather than suspicion. Amanda Bennett was called first, presenting a carefully constructed image of maternal devotion. Under Thornton's gentle questioning, she described her perfect family life shattered by incomprehensible tragedy, her tearful gratitude at her daughter's return, and her confusion at being treated like a suspect. During Phillips's cross-examination, however, cracks appeared in her facade. When questioned about the chain purchase, Amanda became flustered, contradicting her previous statement to police. When shown hospital photographs of Lily's older injuries, she claimed ignorance, suggesting her daughter was prone to normal childhood accidents. "Mrs. Bennett," Phillips asked, "can you explain why your daughter had 7 documented accidents requiring medical attention in the past year, none of which you accompanied her to the hospital for?" "Ryan, my husband, handled those incidents," she replied, glancing toward him. "I was usually busy with charity obligations." "And did you ever question the frequency or severity of these incidents?" Amanda's hand trembled as she reached for her water glass. "I trusted my husband's judgment." Ryan's testimony followed, his confidence unwavering as he portrayed himself as a devoted stepfather, blindsided by unfounded accusations. He emphasized his community standing, charitable contributions, and the witch hunt being conducted against his family during a time of trauma. "These allegations are not only false but cruel," he stated firmly. "My stepdaughter was victimized once by her abductor. Now she's being victimized again by overzealous officials." Phillips approached his cross-examination methodically. "Mr. Bennett, your cell phone records show you were in Oakwood Park at precisely the time Lily disappeared. Despite your statement to police that you were at your office across town, can you explain this discrepancy?" Ryan's composure flickered momentarily. "I stepped out briefly to clear my head. I often walk in the park. I didn't mention it because it seemed irrelevant." "And your business meeting scheduled for that afternoon, the one you claimed prevented you from picking up Lily yourself. Rescheduled at the last minute, these are hardly suspicious circumstances. Counselor." Phillips changed tactics. "Mr. Bennett, are you familiar with the concept of punishment by exposure?" When Ryan didn't respond, Phillips continued. "It's a disciplinary technique where a child is forced to remain outdoors regardless of weather conditions. Child psychology experts categorize it as abuse." "I don't see how this is relevant," Ryan replied stiffly. "Your ex-wife, Catherine Wells, has provided a sworn statement that you routinely employed this punishment with her daughter, including once chaining her to a backyard tree overnight for bedwetting. Does this sound familiar, Mr. Bennett?" Thornton erupted with objections about prejudicial questioning and irrelevant past allegations. Judge Wilson sustained the objection but watched Ryan closely as he composed himself. The courtroom's atmosphere grew increasingly tense as evidence-mounted forensic analysis showing soil from the park embedded in Ryan's expensive boots. Deleted text messages recovered from Amanda's phone discussing the need to teach Lily a permanent lesson. And most damning, the store clerk from Oakdale Hardware who positively identified Ryan as the man in the car when Amanda purchased the chain. During a brief recess, Emily noticed Ryan in heated discussion with Thornton, his controlled facade cracking to reveal glimpses of the rage beneath. Amanda sat separately, shoulders hunched, refusing to meet her husband's eyes. The family's supporters had dwindled to just 3 people, the others slipping away as testimony painted an increasingly disturbing picture. When proceedings resumed, Judge Wilson addressed the courtroom. "Before I hear closing arguments, there is the matter of Ms. Bennett's statement. Dr. Mitchell, has your patient indicated she wishes to communicate with the court?" Dr. Mitchell conferred briefly with Lily, who nodded while clutching Shadow's fur. "Your Honor, Lily has prepared written answers to specific questions. She's willing to present these, with Shadow remaining beside her for support." Judge Wilson nodded. "Proceed." Dr. Mitchell guided Lily to a seat near the judge. The child carried a folder containing papers, her small face solemn but determined. Shadow stayed pressed against her leg, his scarred face alert and protective. "Lily, did you write this note that was found in Shadow's vest?" Dr. Mitchell asked, showing her the paper Judge Wilson had received earlier. Lily nodded, then picked up a marker and wrote on a large notepad, "Yes, I was scared." "Can you tell us what happened the day you disappeared from the park?" Lily wrote slowly, her handwriting large and uneven. "Daddy came in his car, said Mommy was hurt. When I got in, he was mad about my teacher calling home. What happened after that? He drove to the woods, said I needed to be taught a lesson for telling lies at school." Her hand trembled as she continued. "He had the chain from the garage, said I would stay until I learned not to tell." Ryan Bennett surged to his feet. "This is coached testimony. She's being manipulated. Mr. Bennett, control yourself or I'll have you removed," Judge Wilson warned. Lily flinched at Ryan's voice but continued writing. "He said no one would find me, said I'd be sorry. He left me there all night. And what about your mother? Was she there?" Lily shook her head, writing she never stops him. "She's scared, too." "Objection," Thornton called. "The child is speculating about her mother's state of mind." "Sustained," Judge Wilson replied gently. "Lily, did you see Shadow while you were in the park?" Lily's expression softened as she stroked the dog's head. "He came the second night, stayed with me, kept me warm, tried to bring me food." She paused, then added, "He understood. He has scars, too." A hush fell over the courtroom. Judge Wilson leaned forward. "Lily, one last question. Are you afraid to go home?" Without hesitation, Lily wrote in large capital letters, "Please don't make me go back. He'll kill me next time." Ryan Bennett's control finally shattered. "You ungrateful little liar," he shouted, lunging toward the witness area. "After everything I've done for you." Shadow was on his feet instantly, placing himself between Lily and the advancing threat, his warning growl filling the courtroom. Court officers intercepted Ryan, restraining him as he continued shouting threats. Amid the chaos, Amanda Bennett sat motionless, tears streaming down her face as she stared at the daughter she had failed to protect. Judge Wilson's gavel cracked sharply. "Remove Mr. Bennett from my courtroom immediately. Mr. Thornton, control your client or face contempt charges." Once order was restored, she continued, "In light of Ms. Bennett's testimony and Mr. Bennett's disturbing display, I'm dispensing with closing arguments. This court finds sufficient evidence to warrant emergency protective custody." She turned to Emily. "Miss Parker, as the child's appointed advocate, I'm placing Lily in your temporary custody pending formal foster placement evaluation. Mr. Phillips, I expect charges to be filed against both parents by morning." Her gaze shifted to Detective Collins. "Detective, Mr. Bennett is to be taken into custody immediately on suspicion of child endangerment, attempted murder, and witness intimidation." As court officers escorted Ryan from the building in handcuffs, his final words echoed through the marble hallway. "This isn't over. Do you hear me? This is not over." In a quiet anteroom, Emily knelt before Lily, who hadn't released her grip on Shadow's fur. "You were so brave in there," she said softly. "I'm so proud of you." Lily reached for a notepad, writing carefully, "Can Shadow stay with me?" Emily glanced at Dr. Mitchell, who nodded approval. "Yes, he can stay with you." We're going to my apartment now, where you'll be safe." She hesitated, then added, "Lily, I promise you won't have to go back to that house ever again." For the first time since being found in the park. Lily's face showed a flicker of what might someday become a smile. She leaned against Shadow, who responded by gently resting his scarred head on her shoulder. Two wounded souls finding sanctuary in each other as they prepared to leave the courthouse through a private exit. Detective Collins approached, his weathered face solemn. "Ms. Parker, we're posting an officer outside your apartment tonight." Bennett made bail despite the judge's recommendation. He lowered his voice. "He has resources and connections we haven't identified yet. Be vigilant." Emily nodded, suddenly aware of the weight of responsibility she'd taken on. She glanced at Lily and Shadow waiting by the door, the child's hand buried protectively in the dog's fur. "We'll be careful, but we won't live in fear, either." What she didn't say, what she couldn't articulate even to herself, was the growing certainty that Ryan Bennett's threats weren't empty posturing. The look in his eyes as he was led away carried the unmistakable promise of retribution. The battle for Lily's safety had been won in court today, but Emily sensed the war was far from over. The autumn night wrapped Burlington in a cocoon of early darkness as Emily guided Lily and Shadow into her modest apartment. A police cruiser parked discreetly across the street provided some reassurance, but Emily still checked and double-checked the locks before finally allowing herself to breathe. The day's events had left all three of them exhausted. Shadow limping more noticeably than usual, Lily's small shoulders curved inward like wilting petals. "This is your room for now?" Emily explained, showing Lily the spare bedroom she'd hastily prepared while court was in recess. She'd called in favors from colleagues, acquiring a child-sized bed with floral sheets, a nightlight shaped like a moon, and a stuffed bear sitting expectantly on the pillow. "It's not fancy, but it's safe." Lily stood in the doorway, clutching her small backpack of hospital belongings, her expression unreadable. She reached for the notepad Emily had given her in the car and wrote, "Can Shadow sleep here, too?" "Of course," Emily answered, watching as the German shepherd padded into the room and inspected each corner before settling beside the bed, his scarred face alert despite his fatigue. The bond between child and dog had grown stronger with each passing hour, their shared trauma creating a language only they fully understood. The evening passed quietly as Emily prepared soup and sandwiches, carefully avoiding triggering topics while establishing simple routines that might help Lily feel secure. The child ate little but seemed to draw comfort from Shadow's steady presence at her feet. When bedtime came, Emily helped her settle into the new bed, Shadow immediately positioning himself on the floor beside her. "I'm just down the hall if you need anything," Emily assured her. "You're safe here, Lily, I promise." The child nodded solemnly, then wrote one more note before placing the pad on the nightstand. "Thank you for believing me." Those 5 words haunted Emily as she sat in her darkened living room, reviewing case files by the light of a single lamp. How many adults had failed this child? How many signs had been ignored? Her training as both nurse and social worker had taught her the devastating statistics. Most abused children attempted to signal their distress multiple times before anyone intervened, if intervention came at all. Her phone vibrated with a text from Detective Collins. "Bennett posted $500,000 $1,000 bail. Released 20 minutes ago. Officer Ramirez remains on station outside your building." Emily's stomach clenched. The justice system's machinations never ceased to disturb her. How a man could be led from a courtroom in handcuffs after threatening a child, only to walk free hours later through the magic of wealth and connections. She peeked into Lily's room, finding small comfort in the sight of the child sleeping fitfully, one hand dangling over the bed's edge to rest on Shadow's fur. News of the Bennett case exploded across Burlington by morning. Emily's phone rang incessantly as colleagues, journalists, and concerned citizens sought information. She fielded only the most essential calls, including one from Amanda Bennett's attorney requesting a supervised visit with Lily. Mrs. Bennett claims she was unaware of her husband's actions, the lawyer explained in clipped tones. She wishes to explain herself to her daughter. Lily's psychologist needs to approve any contact, Emily replied firmly. The child's emotional well-being comes first. By mid-morning, Emily's supervisor arrived for an official assessment of the temporary placement. Howard Grayson had initially opposed Emily's involvement in the case, but now proceeded with professional thoroughness, inspecting the apartment and observing Lily's interactions with both Emily and Shadow. The department has concerns about the dog, he noted, watching Shadow trail Lily from kitchen to living room. No matter its role in finding her, we can't officially endorse placing a former stray with unknown history in a trauma recovery environment. Emily bristled. Shadow is integral to Lily's sense of security. Separating them would cause additional trauma. Nevertheless, we need to consider authorized placement options. The Lewis family has already expressed interest in fostering Lily. They're experienced with special needs children. You can't seriously be considering moving her again so soon, Emily protested. She's just beginning to feel secure. Dr. Mitchell agrees that stability is crucial right now. Grayson's expression remained impassive. The department appreciates your emergency intervention, Emily. But professional boundaries exist for a reason. You found the child. You're not equipped to be her long-term solution. After he left, Emily sat beside Lily at the small kitchen table where the child was coloring with crayons provided by the Victim Services Unit. Lily, some people think you might be more comfortable staying with a family who has more experience taking care of kids who've been through hard times. What do you think about that? The crayon in Lily's hand stilled. Her blue eyes, too old for her 8 years, met Emily's with unmistakable fear. She wrote quickly, "Will Shadow come too?" Emily hesitated, unable to lie. "I don't know. They might have rules about pets." Lily's response was immediate and emphatic. "No, please. I stay here." The decision crystallized in Emily's mind. Whatever bureaucratic battles lay ahead, she would fight to maintain this fragile sanctuary they'd created. She squeezed Lily's small hand. "I'll do everything I can to keep us together." That afternoon brought more disquieting developments. Dr. Mitchell arrived for Lily's scheduled therapy session, bringing news that Ryan Bennett had filed a countersuit alleging defamation, evidence tampering, and malicious interference with parental rights. "It's a standard intimidation tactic," Dr. Mitchell explained after the session while Lily played with Shadow in the living room. "But concerning nonetheless. Bennett's attorney is requesting an independent psychological evaluation, claiming my assessment is compromised." Emily's frustration mounted. How is he still wielding this much influence? The evidence against him is overwhelming. Money, connections, and Burlington's uncomfortable relationship with its own darkness. The psychologist gathered her notes. "There's something else you should know. During our session today, Lily indicated she believes there were other children. Other children? What do you mean? She drew pictures of what appears to be a basement room with multiple small beds. When I asked if friends stayed at her house, she became extremely agitated. Dr. Mitchell lowered her voice further. I've seen similar documentation patterns in trafficking cases. Emily, the implication sent ice through Emily's veins. Are you saying Ryan Bennett might be involved in something even worse than what we've uncovered? I'm saying we may have only scratched the surface. Detective Collins needs to see these drawings. As if summoned by his name, Collins called while Dr. Mitchell was still gathering her things. His voice carried the flat effect Emily had come to recognize as his response to particularly disturbing discoveries. We've completed the forensic analysis of Bennett's home office computers. There's evidence of deleted file directories with coded names. Tech Unit is working on recovery, but preliminary findings suggest systematic record-keeping of some kind. Children's names? Emily asked, stepping into the kitchen where Lily couldn't overhear. Possibly. We've also found financial transfers to offshore accounts that coincide with dates of 3 previously reported missing children cases in neighboring counties. None of those children were found. Collins paused. How's the girl doing? Fragile but resilient. The department wants to transfer her to an official foster placement. Fight it, Collins said immediately. Bennett has tentacles throughout the system. I don't trust standard protocols in this case. After ending the call, Emily stood at her kitchen window, watching evening shadows lengthen across the street. The police cruiser had changed shifts. Officer Ramirez replaced by a younger patrolman who seemed less vigilant, occasionally checking his phone. Across the street, a black sedan had been parked for over an hour, its windows tinted too darkly to see the occupant. Emily was contemplating calling Collins about the vehicle when a crash from the living room sent her running. Shadow stood bristling at the apartment's front door. Teeth bared as shards from a broken flower pot littered the entryway. Through the door's peephole, Emily glimpsed a retreating figure in a maintenance uniform. On the hallway floor lay a plain white envelope that had been pushed beneath the door. With trembling fingers, Emily retrieved it, finding a single sheet of expensive stationery inside. The handwritten message was brief. Children should be with their parents. Reconsider your position before irreparable mistakes are made. Lily appeared in the hallway, wide-eyed and trembling. She pressed against Shadow, who maintained his protective stance despite the obvious pain in his injured leg. Emily quickly tucked the note away and forced a reassuring smile. Just a delivery to the wrong apartment, she said lightly. Nothing to worry about. But as she swept up broken pottery, Emily's mind raced with calculations and contingencies. Bennett was escalating from legal intimidation to direct threats. The police presence hadn't deterred him. The black sedan across the street suddenly seemed more ominous. Not surveillance, but preparation. That night, after Lily finally fell asleep, Emily made the hardest phone call of her career. Dr. Mitchell, it's Emily Parker. I think we need to consider moving Lily immediately. It's not safe here anymore. The psychologist's response was immediate and grave. I've been reaching the same conclusion, but we need to be extremely careful about where she goes. If Bennett has the connections we suspect, traditional safe houses might be compromised. I have an idea, Emily said, watching Shadow lying protectively across Lily's doorway. But it means breaking several departmental protocols. At this point, Dr. Mitchell replied, following protocol may be more dangerous than breaking it. As she hung up, Emily caught a glimpse of her reflection in the window, exhausted, frightened, but resolute. Whatever came next would risk her career, possibly her safety. But looking at the sleeping child and the loyal dog guarding her, Emily knew with bone-deep certainty some battles couldn't be walked away from, no matter the cost. The rain came at midnight, a steady autumn downpour that washed the streets of Burlington and provided cover for Emily's careful preparations. With the lights off and curtains drawn, she packed essentials into 2 small bags: clothes, medications, Lily's growing collection of drawings, Shadow's new leash and collar, each item selected with deliberate consideration of what they could carry without drawing attention. Detective Collins arrived at 2 a.m., alone and in an unmarked vehicle. His weathered face betrayed no emotion as he helped load their meager belongings into the trunk. "The officer on patrol has been called away to an incident across town," he explained quietly. "Convenient timing. We have maybe 15 minutes before someone notices the gap in surveillance." Emily guided a sleepy Lily to the car, Shadow limping protectively beside them. The child clutched her stuffed bear and a small backpack containing treasured possessions. Her notepad, colored pencils, and a Polaroid photo Emily had taken of her with Shadow the previous day. "Where are we going?" Emily asked once they were underway, wipers beating rhythmically against the rain. Collins kept his eyes on the road. "My sister's cabin on Lake Champlain. Remote, defensible, and off the books. No digital trail." He glanced in the rear-view mirror where Lily had already fallen back asleep against Shadow's solid warmth. How much does she understand about what's happening? More than she should have to. Emily answered softly. She knows Bennett is dangerous and that we're keeping her safe. They drove in silence for over an hour, taking secondary roads and doubling back occasionally to ensure they weren't followed. Dawn was just beginning to lighten the eastern sky when they reached the cabin, a modest structure nestled among pine trees with the vast expanse of Lake Champlain visible through the morning mist. "No one knows about this place except my sister, and she's in Arizona until spring," Collins explained as he unlocked the door. "No internet. Cell service is spotty at best. Landline for emergencies only." He hesitated. "It's not exactly child-friendly." But the cabin proved more welcoming than its exterior suggested. The main room featured comfortable furniture, oriented around a stone fireplace, with a small but functional kitchen along one wall. A narrow staircase led to a loft bedroom, while a smaller bedroom occupied the back corner of the main floor. "It's perfect," Emily assured him, watching as Lily explored with cautious interest, Shadow never more than a step behind her. Collins brought in a final bag from his car groceries, a medical kit, and a locked box he secured in a cabinet without explanation. "I'll check in when I can, but it might not be daily. Less movement around here is better." He handed Emily a prepaid phone. "For emergencies only. Untraceable. But still a risk if used too often." After he left, Emily set about making the cabin habitable, grateful for simple tasks that kept worrisome thoughts at bay. She prepared a light breakfast that Lily barely touched, then helped the child settle into the loft bedroom for a proper rest. Shadow refused to leave Lily's side, his vigilance unwavering despite his obvious exhaustion. "You need rest too," Emily told the dog, gently examining his injured leg. The veterinarian had warned the old wound might never fully heal, but proper care could prevent further damage. She applied the prescribed ointment to his scarred face and ear, marveling at his patience. "We're all safe here. Shadow, You can stand down for a while." The dog's amber eyes seemed to evaluate her words before he finally settled beside Lily's bed with a heavy sigh. By afternoon, rain still drummed against the cabin's metal roof, creating a soothing backdrop to their uncertain sanctuary. Emily found herself standing at the window, watching the mist rise from the lake's surface while mentally cataloging the developments that had led them here fugitives, essentially, despite being victims. Dr. Mitchell arrived just before dusk, her car spattered with mud from the unpaved access road. She brought additional supplies, news from Burlington, and most importantly, her professional presence that offered a thread of normalcy in their disrupted lives. "The department is officially looking for you," she informed Emily after Lily had gone back upstairs. "Howard Grayson is furious, calling it a breach of protocol and professional ethics, but Judge Wilson has been quietly supportive, suggesting your actions may have been necessary given the circumstances. And Bennett," Dr. Mitchell's expression darkened, "making a public show of being a concerned father, offering a reward for information leading to his daughter's safe return. His attorney is spinning this as a rogue social worker kidnapping a traumatized child." She hesitated. "But there are more serious developments. Collins executed a search warrant on a property Bennett owns outside town. They found evidence consistent with Lily's drawings of the basement room." Emily's throat tightened. Other children. No one in custody, but signs of recent occupation. Multiple beds, restraints, a camera set up. The psychologist's professional composure slipped momentarily. They also found a buried cache of personal effects, clothing, toys, identification belonging to 3 children previously reported missing from neighboring counties. The implications hung in the air between them, too horrific to articulate fully. Emily sank into a chair, sudden nausea washing over her. He wasn't just abusing his stepdaughter. Collins believes Bennett is part of a network, possibly extending beyond state lines. The financial records show regular payments coinciding with children's disappearances, and subsequent larger deposits approximately 2 months later. When the children were moved elsewhere, Emily concluded, the pattern sickeningly clear from her training on trafficking cases. Dr. Mitchell nodded grimly. "They've issued additional warrants, frozen accounts. Bennett's public facade is crumbling, but that makes him more dangerous, not less. His attorney was notified of the new evidence an hour ago. Bennett missed a scheduled check-in with his bail officer shortly afterward. He's running, or hunting, Dr. Mitchell replied quietly. Collins has placed officers at my home and office as a precaution, and Amanda Bennett has been moved to a secure location after agreeing to cooperate with prosecutors." The news about Amanda provoked mixed feelings in Emily. The woman had failed to protect her daughter, had enabled years of abuse through her silence. Yet Emily couldn't help wondering what terrors had enforced that silence. The same questions would eventually need addressing with Lily, how to help her understand her mother's complicated role without deepening her trauma. After Dr. Mitchell departed with promises to return in 2 days. Emily found Lily sitting on the cabin's small porch despite the lingering drizzle, shadow pressed against her side. The child seemed lost in contemplation of the lake, its surface rippled by raindrops and darkening with the approach of evening. Emily sat beside her. "Penny for your thoughts." Lily reached for her ever-present notepad, writing carefully, "Is my mom in trouble too?" The directness of the question caught Emily off guard. She considered her response carefully. "Your mom made some mistakes by not protecting you. She's talking to the police now, helping them understand what happened. Lily processed this, then wrote, "She was scared of him too." "I think she was," Emily agreed gently. "Being afraid can sometimes make adults make wrong choices, just like kids. But that doesn't make what happened to you okay." The child nodded solemnly, then added, "Will I have to see him again?" "Not if you don't want to," Emily assured her. "The judge and the police are working very hard to make sure he can't hurt you or anyone else again." Lily seemed satisfied with this answer, returning her gaze to the lake. After several minutes of companionable silence, she wrote one more note. "I like it here. It's quiet like Shadow." That simple observation, comparing the peaceful landscape to the damaged dog who had saved her, brought unexpected tears to Emily's eyes. She blinked them away quickly, not wanting to disturb the child's rare moment of tranquility. The following days established a gentle rhythm to their exile. Mornings began with simple breakfast rituals and basic homeschooling exercises Dr. Mitchell had provided. Afternoons included walks along the lakeshore when weather permitted, Shadow always ranging ahead to scout the path before allowing Lily to follow. Evenings brought drawing sessions by the fireplace, hot chocolate, and early bedtimes for bodies and minds still recovering from trauma. Detective Collins visited twice, bringing supplies and updates on the expanding investigation. With each visit, his initially stern demeanor softened slightly around Lily, particularly after she presented him with a carefully drawn picture of Shadow wearing what appeared to be a police badge. On his second visit, Collins brought news that simultaneously relieved and alarmed them. "We've issued an interstate warrant for Bennett's arrest. Evidence from his properties has connected him to a trafficking operation spanning at least 4 states. Federal authorities are involved now." "Have they located him?" Emily asked, keeping her voice low as Lily played with Shadow near the fireplace. Collins shook his head. "His accounts show a large cash withdrawal the day after the basement evidence was discovered. No credit card activity, no cell phone pings." He hesitated. "There's something else. One of Bennett's known associates was questioned yesterday." After securing a deal, he mentioned a contingency plan Bennett had discussed something about, "If everything falls apart, take back what's mine and disappear completely." Emily's blood ran cold. He was talking about Lily. "Most likely. We've increased patrols in this area, but discreetly. I don't want to draw attention to this location." Collins rubbed his face wearily. "The good news is Amanda Bennett has provided substantial testimony, including details about other men involved in her husband's activities. Arrests are happening as we speak." That night, long after Lily had gone to sleep upstairs, Emily sat by the fireplace with Shadow, who had reluctantly left his post beside the child to have his leg examined. The injury seemed to be improving, but the old damage would always affect his gait, a permanent reminder of past cruelty. "You and she are a lot alike," Emily told him softly, stroking his scarred head. "Both survived the unthinkable. Both still capable of trust, despite every reason not to trust." Shadow's amber eyes held hers with unsettling intelligence before he suddenly stiffened. Ears alert, attention focused on the cabin door. A low growl rumbled in his chest as he rose to his feet. Emily froze, listening intently. At first, she heard nothing beyond the gentle lapping of the lake against the shore and the whisper of pines in the night breeze. Then a subtle crunch of gravel outside, too deliberate to be wildlife. Shadow's growl deepened as he moved toward the stairs, clearly intent on positioning himself between potential danger and Lily. Emily reached for the locked box Collins had left, her hands shaking as she input the combination he'd provided, just in case. Inside lay a 9mm handgun, loaded with the safety on, exactly as Collins had described. Another sound metal scraping against metal, the unmistakable sound of someone testing the door lock. Emily raised the gun with both hands, muscle memory from required training courses guiding her stance. Shadow stationed himself at the foot of the stairs, hackles raised, a final barrier between threat and child. The doorknob turned slowly, and Emily steadied her breathing. Whatever came through that door, whatever Ryan Bennett had planned in his desperate final play, he would find that Lily was protected now by something he couldn't have anticipated: a makeshift family forged in trauma, bound by healing, and absolutely unwilling to surrender their hard-won safety. The door inched open, amber light from the dying fire spilling onto the porch as Emily kept the gun trained steadily on the widening gap. Shadow's growl deepened to a threatening rumble that filled the small cabin. Time seemed to slow, each second stretching into unbearable length as Emily's finger hovered near the trigger. "Emily, it's Mitchell. Don't shoot." The familiar voice broke the tension with such abruptness that Emily nearly dropped the weapon. "Doctor." Sarah Mitchell stood in the doorway, hands raised slightly, her expression shifting from caution to relief as Emily lowered the gun. "I tried calling but couldn't get through," the psychologist explained, stepping inside and quickly closing the door behind her. "I should have waited until morning, but after what happened in Burlington tonight—" "What happened?" Emily engaged the gun's safety and set it aside, though Shadow remained alert at the foot of the stairs. "Doctor—" Mitchell removed her rain-spattered coat, exhaustion evident in every movement. "They found Bennett's vehicle abandoned at the Canadian border, false passport under the seat, luggage in the trunk, but no sign of him." She sank into the nearest chair. "An hour later, Amanda's safe house was breached. The officer posted outside was attacked, rendered unconscious. Amanda is missing." Emily's momentary relief evaporated. Was she taken, or did she go willingly? Unclear. Security footage shows her leaving with a hooded figure, but there's no visible weapon. She could be a victim or an accomplice at this point. Dr. Mitchell glanced toward the loft. "Is Lily asleep?" Emily nodded. "For several hours now. She's been having fewer nightmares, actually sleeping through most nights." "That's remarkable progress, given the circumstances." The psychologist's professional assessment softened with genuine care. "Children are incredibly resilient when provided with stability and safety. You and Shadow have given her both." A comfortable silence settled between them, broken only by the occasional pop from the fireplace and Shadow's gradual relaxation as he determined Dr. Mitchell posed no threat. Eventually, the dog returned to his customary position upstairs with Lily, his claws making distinctive clicks against the wooden steps. Emily rebuilt the fire, made tea, and listened as Dr. Mitchell shared further developments. Federal agents had discovered encrypted communications on Bennett's business servers, linking him to an international network of child traffickers. Several high-profile arrests had been made across 3 states. Judge Wilson had issued an emergency ruling extending Emily's temporary guardianship of Lily, effectively countering the department's attempts to force their return. "The narrative is shifting," Dr. Mitchell explained. What began as a rogue social worker kidnapping story is transforming into heroic intervention saves trafficking victim. The media has been particularly moved by Shadow's role, the abused stray who found and protected Lily. Several national outlets have requested interviews. "We're not exposing Lily to that circus," Emily said firmly. "Of course not. But public sympathy works in your favor now. It creates a protective barrier of sorts." Dr. Mitchell sipped her tea. "That said, Bennett remains unaccounted for. And if Amanda is with him willingly—" The implication hung in the air. The child's own mother might lead her abuser straight to her. "We need to move again," Emily concluded reluctantly. Dr. Mitchell shook her head. "Collins anticipated this possibility. The cabin is now under covert surveillance officers positioned in the surrounding woods, monitoring all approaches. You're actually safer here than you would be in transit." She hesitated. "But there's something else you should know. The department has scheduled a formal hearing regarding your professional conduct and Lily's permanent placement." Emily had expected this inevitability, but the timing felt particularly cruel. "When?" "2 weeks from today, Judge Wilson will preside, which is fortunate. She's requested both you and Lily appear in person. Is it safe to return to Burlington? By then it should be. The FBI has taken over the trafficking investigation, and their resources far exceed Bennett's reach. Collins believes the net is closing quickly." The remainder of the night passed fitfully, Emily dozing in short intervals, while Dr. Mitchell took the spare bedroom. Morning arrived with watery sunshine and the gentle stirring of Lily and Shadow descending from the loft, the child's face momentarily brightening at finding another trusted adult in their sanctuary. Over breakfast, Dr. Mitchell conducted a casual therapy session disguised as conversation, skillfully drawing Lily into communication through her notepad and drawings. Emily observed with quiet admiration the psychologist's gentle techniques, the way she created safe spaces for Lily to express feelings without pressure or judgment. When they moved to the porch to enjoy the rare autumn sunshine, Lily surprised them both by tugging on Dr. Mitchell's sleeve and pointing to her own throat, then to Shadow, a question in her eyes. "Are you asking if Shadow can help you find your voice again?" Dr. Mitchell interpreted. Lily nodded vigorously. "I think he already is," the psychologist replied. "Sometimes after scary things happen, our voices hide because they don't know if it's safe to come out. Shadow helps you feel safe, doesn't he?" Another nod. "Your voice will come back when it's ready. There's no hurry." Lily considered this, then wrote on her pad, "I remember how to talk. The words are stuck." "That makes perfect sense," Dr. Mitchell assured her. "The words are waiting until you feel completely safe. Until then, you're doing wonderfully with your writing and drawing." Later, while Lily and Shadow explored the lake shore within sight of the cabin, Dr. Mitchell reviewed the child's recent artwork. "These show significant healing," she noted, pointing to the evolving use of color and space. Her earlier drawings were cramped, dark, confined to corners of the page. These newer ones use the entire space, incorporate blue skies, open water. "What about this one?" Emily indicated a drawing partially hidden beneath others. A dark figure at the edge of a forest, watching a house. Dr. Mitchell studied it with concern. "When did she draw this?" "Yesterday afternoon. I thought it might be related to memories of the park, but the structure looks more like this cabin." The psychologist placed the drawing aside. Children often process fears through art. It may represent anxiety about Bennett finding her. Or it could be a manifestation of hypervigilance, a common trauma response. Either way, we should pay attention if similar imagery recurs. Dr. Mitchell departed shortly after lunch, promising to return in 3 days with supplies and updates. Emily and Lily spent the afternoon baking cookies from ingredients left in the cabin's pantry, a simple domestic activity that brought a spark of normalcy to their disrupted lives. Shadow maintained his customary vigilance, but with a relaxed posture that suggested even he felt the tension easing. That evening, as they sat before the fireplace with mugs of hot chocolate, Emily broached the subject of the upcoming hearing. "In 2 weeks, we need to go back to Burlington for a special meeting," she explained carefully. "The judge who helped us before wants to talk with you about what happens next." Lily's expression immediately clouded with anxiety. She reached for her notepad. "Will I have to go home?" "No," Emily assured her firmly. "You will never have to go back to that house, but the judge needs to decide where you'll live permanently." The child's next question pierced Emily's heart. "Can I stay with you and Shadow?" Emily had asked herself the same question repeatedly over the past weeks, examining her feelings with professional scrutiny while acknowledging the emotional attachment that had developed. Department regulations discouraged social workers from fostering children from their cases, citing potential conflicts of interest and boundary issues. Yet here, in this extraordinary situation, traditional guidelines seemed woefully inadequate. "I would like that very much," Emily answered truthfully. "But it's complicated. There are rules about social workers taking care of children they've helped professionally." Lily absorbed this, then wrote with determined precision, "I will tell the judge I want to stay with you." "Your opinion matters a lot," Emily agreed. "The judge will definitely listen to what you want." That night, after Lily had gone to sleep, Emily sat on the cabin's porch wrapped in a blanket against the autumn chill. Stars pierced the clear sky with remarkable brilliance, undiminished by city lights. The peaceful setting contrasted sharply with her tumultuous thoughts' concern about Bennett's whereabouts, uncertainty about the upcoming hearing, and the deeper question of her own capacity to become what Lily needed long-term. A soft whine announced Shadow's arrival as he pushed through the screen door to join her. The German shepherd settled beside her chair, his warmth a comfort against the night air. "What do you think, Shadow? Are we crazy to imagine this could work?" she asked softly. The dog rested his scarred head against her knee, amber eyes reflecting starlight as they gazed up at her. In that moment of connection, Emily felt a certainty that transcended professional training and departmental regulations. This unlikely family-damaged child, wounded dog, compassionate adult had been forged in extraordinary circumstances, but their bond was no less real for its unusual origins. 2 weeks later, as autumn leaves reached their peak color, Emily, Lily, and Shadow returned to Burlington under police escort. The federal investigation had netted dozens of arrests connected to Bennett's trafficking network. But Ryan Bennett himself and Amanda remained at large, last seen crossing into Quebec according to border surveillance footage. The courthouse stood solid against a brilliant blue sky as Emily guided Lily up the same steps they had ascended for the emergency hearing that felt like a lifetime ago. Shadow walked between them, his service vest identifying him as Lily's official support animal, thanks to Dr. Mitchell's certification. Judge Eleanor Wilson's chambers had been transformed into an informal hearing room. with only essential personnel present to minimize Lily's stress. The judge herself had abandoned her formal robes for a conservative business suit, creating an atmosphere of dignified compassion rather than intimidating authority. "Ms. Bennett," Judge Wilson addressed Lily directly, using the respectful title rather than the diminutive. "Thank you for coming today. I know this isn't easy for you." Lily nodded, her hand buried in Shadow's fur as she sat between Emily and Dr. Mitchell. "I've reviewed all the reports about your situation, including Dr. Mitchell's recommendations and Ms. Parker's temporary guardianship evaluation, but I'd like to hear directly from you about what you want for your future. Would you be willing to share your thoughts with me?" Emily held her breath as Lily reached for her notepad, expecting the child to write her response as she had consistently done for weeks. Instead, Lily set the pad aside. She straightened her shoulders, took a deep breath, and with Shadow pressing reassuringly against her legs, spoke her first word since being found in Oakwood Park. "I want to stay with Emily and Shadow," she said, her voice raspy from disuse but clear with conviction. "They make me feel safe. They're my family now." As we reach the final chapter of Lily's journey, I'm reminded of how children like her slip through the cracks right in our own neighborhoods. 8-year-old Lily, chained to a tree by the very people meant to protect her, represents every child we've failed to notice in our communities. Remember, it wasn't the authorities with all their resources who found her. It was Shadow, a scarred and abandoned German shepherd who recognized her suffering because he had suffered too. How many times have we looked away when a child's drawings darkened, when their smiles disappeared, when they flinched at sudden movements? The most vulnerable among us often can't speak their truth, just as Lily couldn't find her voice until she found safety. The true measure of our society isn't our prosperity or power, but how we protect those who cannot protect themselves. In your neighborhood today, there's a Lily waiting to be found, a child whose silent plea for help goes unanswered, and perhaps, like Emily, we must sometimes break convention to do what's right. The family they've formed, broken child, wounded dog, and compassionate guardian reminds us that healing is possible when we have the courage to see, to act, and to love.